There is an unalterable law governing everything and every being.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
I want there to be peace everywhere.
South Africa, I greet you all in the name of peace.
First of all, good afternoon, and on behalf of the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, welcome to I.P.F.W. and welcome to today's celebration of our Native American heritage. My name is Julie Creek, and I direct the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs. One of our most important missions as an office is to recognize and celebrate human diversity in all of its forms. Racial, obviously, ethnic, socioeconomic, gender, sexual identity, family background. We have programs and outreach efforts for all different kinds of groups at I.P.F.W. Our goal is to ensure that every member of our student body, faculty, and staff see themselves as part of our community, part of our larger I.P.F.W. community. Toward that end, we seek to celebrate the cultural heritage of our students, faculty, and staff. As we celebrate Native American Heritage Month, we are happy to have our musical guest here to help us make that happen. John Two Hawks of the Oglala Lakota Nation overcame a childhood filled with adversity to become a Grammy and Emmy-nominated musician and performer, but his path wasn't a straight one. As a teenager and a young adult musical prodigy, he played in several rock bands, all of which managed to break up just as they were about to make it into the big time. After losing his parents, he began to reassess his direction and reached back into his Native American heritage to begin playing the Native American flute, and that was where he discovered his true passion. The rest, as they say, is history. The list of his recordings covers 2 pages. He's played to sold-out crowds around the country. Please join me in welcoming John Two Hawks.
squeaky floor. All right, well, thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the folks that worked so hard to put this together. We should just start right off by giving Stephanie a great big round of applause. Thank you, Stephanie. And then, of course, Don and Patty and Jerry, they worked really hard. You guys heard. There's a round of applause as well. And so, what I'm going to share with you today is an experience that will take you into kind of our culture a bit and help you to kind of see things through our eyes. Back in 1890, Sitting Bull was murdered on December 12th in South Dakota, up in the northern part of South Dakota, where the Standing Rock Reservation is now. After that happened, a man who is now known as Chief Bigfoot, he was a Minneconjou Lakota. He decided that it was dangerous to stay there, so he decided he needed to go. Now, during that period of time, you, as an American Indian person, were not allowed to leave the reservation. You were basically a prisoner. So if you left, well, then the government would send the army after you. So it was a dangerous thing to do. But he felt it was more dangerous to stay there. So he left with his band of about 500. Now you got to remember, this is South Dakota in December. And they had to travel at night because they couldn't be seen. They also couldn't light fires, because of course that would give them away as well. They made their way all the way down on horse and on foot, all the way down to the southern part of South Dakota where Pine Ridge Reservation is today. It was then called Red Cloud Agency. The long and short of it is that they were intercepted on December 29th by the 7th Cavalry. And what happened was a tragic massacre of 420 people, mostly children, elders, and women. There were not a lot of young fighting age men with the group, and quite frankly, there were pretty much no weapons. So they were sitting ducks. And so, in 1986, a gentleman named Percy Whiteplume and a handful of other people, of our Lakota people up there in our land, decided that we needed to go back to that wound. That we needed to revisit it as a people, because the only way to heal was to go back to it. And so we decided, and those people decided then in 1986, that we would start on December 12th up in Standing Rock Reservation on a horse and ride. Take the same route that Chief Bigfoot and his people took, arrive to Wounded Knee on the same day, and do a big ceremony called the Wiping of the Tears ceremony to heal that wound. They thought they would do the ride for 4 years. And it's been going on ever since. Last December, I was invited to come and take part. Now here's the tricky thing for me. Other than a trail ride, I had pretty much never been on a horse. But I said yes. You can't turn an invite like that down. So I went, and I got on this horse, whose name was CH, and I rode in the brutal winter of South Dakota 135 miles on a horse over the course of 8 days. And we arrived at Wounded Knee, did a huge ceremony there, and then me and the rest of the group rode on into Pine Ridge Village to finish the ride. It was the most brutal pain I have ever felt in my body. And it was also an incredible pain, spiritually and emotionally, to go back to that place. But the amazing thing is that out of that place rises hope. Out of that place of the deepest wound, when we go back to it, when we tend to it, you know, if you ignore a wound, it festers. But when you tend to it, when you look at it, when you deal with it, that's how you heal. And so that's what we've been doing since 1986. Every year. They're getting ready to do it again this winter. Every year since 1986, we've been going back to that wound. And little by little, bit by bit, our people are healing. The youth, we have triple the national rate of suicide among teenagers in our culture. Triple. There's billboards all over our reservation with pictures of young girls and boys who have committed suicide. It's terrible. But things like this give them hope, make them feel good about being who they are. It's a wonderful thing. I'm riding on the horse, and I have a little Lakota girl right up beside me, and she's riding bareback. These young kids grow up on these horses. She's riding bareback, and she comes up beside me, and she goes, and she could tell, it was very obvious that I was not an experienced rider. All you had to do was just look at me. And she rode up beside me, and she says, "I'm going to slap your horse on his butt." And to see a little girl like that, 13 years old, riding on that ride, making that sacrifice herself, it fills me with hope, and it fills our people with hope. To see our young generation grabbing a hold of who they are as a people and feeling good about it. It's a good thing. And that's what this music that I'm sharing with you today is about. That very first song is called Oyate. The people is what that means in Lakota. It's about our people coming together and being together and what that means to be together. And so I'm gonna do another song for you now that's a song off of an album called Beautiful World. And I wanted to do this one because it kind of ties into the message of the Horse Spirit album. And it's about going into that dark place, that dark night. And has anybody here ever had a bad day? Bad week, month, year? Yeah. When you enter into that place, there is a period where you have a right to complain. And you need to. There's a period of suffering that you need to say, you know what? This really stinks. This hurts. But the problem is if we stay there. If we stay in that place, then we get stuck in that place. See? And that's what I mean about going back to the wound. You got to tend to it so you don't stay there with that wound festering. It's the same when we enter into dark places, when we enter into troubled times in our lives, as a community, whatever it might be. We have to admit that we hurt before we can find our way out of it. So then we go through that, and then the next thing is to look up and try to find the ray of light. That's how we find our way out of the valley. And so that's what this song is about. This next song here is from the Beautiful World album that I released in 2013. And it's called Night of the Soul. when we were on about the second or third day, there were two things that happened that were very interesting. Me and my brother David were riding, and at one point we found ourselves beside an 18-year-old girl who was riding with us. And she explained that she had been riding that Bigfoot Memorial ride for 6 years. Every year for 6 years. Now you got to understand, this ride goes from December 12th all the way to December 29th. So Christmas is in there. This young girl explained to my brother and I that she hadn't had a Christmas gift or seen a Christmas tree in 6 years. That this experience of being on this horse and riding into the Badlands on Christmas Day was her Christmas gift to herself. To make that sacrifice was her gift to herself. My brother David and I marveled at that 18-year-old Lakota girl. Wow. That's a warrior woman right there, you see. That's somebody who understands the meaning of giving. I thought that was incredible. So that was one of the things that happened on the second and third day. The next thing that happened was that we rode into a place that's called Redwater. And this particular place is it's kind of down on the bottom of a valley, and there's a little kind of a pond down there. The first 2 days of the riding were brutal. On day one, the temperature, not the wind chill, the temperature was 20 below zero. And the wind was blowing over 40 miles an hour. It's a kind of cold that if your skin gets exposed to it, it burns it. It's unbelievable kind of cold. So we rode 40 miles on the first day, 40 miles, into that kind of weather. So nobody really had time or could even really say anything to each other. You were just huddled in on your horse and just trying to get through the day. Same thing on the second day. But on the third day, the sun came out. And it warmed up just a little bit. People lowered their scarves a little. People would say hi. Moments along the ride, they would say hello to one another. At the end of that day, we rode down the hill into Redwater. There was a long line of probably close to 100 riders. And we had ridden all day long, and everybody was very tired, very weary, and very hungry. Down at the bottom of the hill, 3 Lakota men were holding a hand drum. As we rode down the hill, they sang an old Lakota song. And it makes my throat lump up right now even thinking about it, because it was so beautiful. And it was so powerful, because after 2 and 3 days of brutal conditions and incredible sacrifice and suffering, here we were riding down the hill, and there was a song for us. And we knew that after that, we were riding back up the hill on the other side to a great big warm meal, which was great. And we were all going to be together. It was awesome. And so this song that I'm going to play for you now is named after the place. And it's about that suffering. You know, I think about the term red water, and I think about what that means. You can put your own thoughts into what that might mean. The red water, you see. And so it's a place of loss, but it was a place that day of great warmth and happiness. And so you'll hear all of that in this song. And so it's called Red Water. There was a moment on the ride where my brother David and I found ourselves kind of a little bit separated from the group. There were no riders to be seen behind us and no riders to be seen in front of us. Because, you know, an 8 to 10 hour day's ride, 100 riders get separated. And so we were kind of riding together, just the two of us, and I was just kind of hunkered down on my horse, just kind of looking down, and all of a sudden I heard my brother David say, "John." And I looked up, and when I looked at him, he just looked around and went like this. His gesture caused me to take a look around. And as I looked around, I saw where we were. And my brother David said, "We're here. We're up in our homeland, making this sacrifice together." And there was a moment there where we were riding, where the horses were just walking. It was reprieve, sweet reprieve for me and my poor knees. And all you could hear was the sound of our horses' hooves crunching into that bitter northern plains winter snow. And as far as you could see, open prairie. White, snow-covered open prairie. It was an awesome moment. It's fantastic. Every day on that ride, when I got off the horse, I couldn't walk for about 10 minutes. I had to stand beside my horse and just wait for my knees to come back. Because, it's rough when you've never ridden a horse before, and your body is straining to try to not fall off. And really what took the brunt of it was my knees. And I got off that horse, and the first time I got off the horse on the very first day, I fell on the ground. I didn't expect that. I threw my leg back down, and I put my feet on the ground, and there I went. And so I learned after that to be a little bit more careful. But my knees were on the first day I really thought that I was doing permanent damage to my knees. That's how bad they hurt. They were so swollen I couldn't bend at 90 degrees. It was unbelievable, the pain. But that's the kind of suffering I was willing, and all of us were willing to make that journey and to show the way back to healing for our youth, for the coming generations. See? We were willing to do that, willing to hurt. And so, this moment on the horse, for me, was a nice break from that. A nice break from the pain of trotting. Just terrible. Just bouncing up and down, And the horses were walking, it was still. And all we had there was a moment of silence, just to contemplate and think about why we were there. This is called spirits. This next song is a song that's the title track to the album, and it's a song about honoring the horse. The horse that I was on, I was fortunate enough that I got to go the whole way with that same horse. A lot of riders switched horses. It's hard on the horses to go that far. But thankfully, Percy Whiteplume decided to let me ride the same horse all the way, and he knew that horse was strong enough to do it. And boy, was he ever. He was a rock. He was an incredible horse, and I bonded with him on that 135-mile journey. And at the end, when I had to take his saddle off and say goodbye, I shed a tear or two. It was very emotional to part ways with that animal that kept me safe all that way and made that sacrifice with me. We're a horse nation as Lakota people, and so we're connected to our horses, and there's a very strong relationship and a bond between us. And so this song is to honor that. It's to honor that bond. And anybody here who's ever ridden a horse or has ever had a horse knows how much healing can come out of that animal, how connected you can become to a horse. And so it honors all of that. This song is called Horse Spirit. The beginning of that video there that you see, that's us. That was actually taken from the ride last year. The 2013, the December ride, that video was shot. So I'm in there somewhere on a horse, riding around. And where we're at there is actually, that's the moment when we arrived at Wounded Knee. So that video was taken in a very sacred, very special place. And it was a real proud moment because we had been riding a long time by the time we got to Wounded Knee. And it was a brutal day that day too. And I want to tell you a little bit about that day as it leads into this next song. When we rode down that hill 9 miles, I thought when we started off that day, because we had rode 16 miles up to that point. We had 9 miles to go after we ate lunch. And I thought, 9 miles, yes, this is going to be a breeze. Boy, was I wrong. What happened after lunch is all of a sudden the wind started blowing. And the temperatures had gotten back down to where they were when we started the ride. They were 20 below zero again, and the wind was howling again. And that last 9 miles, I didn't know was going to be ridden on pavement. And we pretty much trotted the whole way. Anybody who knows what that means, anyone who's ever ridden a horse knows that trotting is like the worst. You'd rather run a horse than trot. It's very hard on the body. Especially my horse, he had a really strong, bouncy gait. And with me being a rookie rider, oh, it was brutal. Just brutal, that 9 miles. It hurt so bad, I just could not wait for it to stop. I mean, I just couldn't think, I didn't think I could take another step. And then you find out, well, there went another step. You find out you can go further than you thought. And there's something in that. When we go through something and we come out the other side and we survive, and we make it, we realize we have more strength in us. We have more in us than we might have thought we had. And it's a good feeling. It makes you feel like you can do more than you maybe thought you could. It's a great feeling of accomplishment. That 9 miles was brutal. And the other part of it that was very interesting is as the wind started kicking up and howling, and it literally sounded, and everyone, all the riders heard it. It sounded like moaning in the wind. As we were riding down into this place where the mass grave was, Wounded Knee, where this terrible tragedy happened. That day, what we had been riding all that way for, there we were riding down the hill. And as the mass grave came into view, the wind was moaning like 1,000 ancestors. When I did this song, I wanted to duplicate that wind, and I couldn't. There was no way to make it sound like that. And I thought, whoever hears this is going to have to hear it in their spirit. Because the ancestors were talking to us that day. They were crying in the wind. It was amazing. Black Elk, famous Oglala Lakota, was 12 years old in 1890 when the massacre happened. He was not far away from it. He heard the guns and the cannons. He ran up the hill after the massacre was over to see what had happened. He was 12 years old, just a boy. When he stood on that high hill and looked down at what was down there, the carnage of that day, he made a comment. And I'm going to paraphrase it. He said, "As I stand here on this high hill of my old age, I can still see from the top of that hill with eyes still young. I can see the broken bodies lying along the crooked gulch as if it were yesterday. People's dream died there in the bloody mud. The sacred tree is dead, and the hoop is broken." That's the words of Black Elk. Later on in his life, he reprised that. And he said, perhaps some root of the sacred tree still lives. He said this as an old man. And he was right. That sacred root rode down into Wounded Knee that day to heal and mend the sacred hoop. We survived it. And now we rise up out of the other side of it. So we rode down into that place, and it was a place of great sorrow. And I think it's important. And it was important for me with this music to take the listener there, to take them to Wounded Knee, to take them to the Crooked Gulch, to the place where it happened. So I want you to go there with me now, and then we will rise out of the other side. This is called Crooked Gulch. So, the next day we did a big ceremony and we rode out of there. And we headed into Pine Ridge on that last day. And there was a sense of real happiness. You might be surprised to hear that, but there was. you have to understand that as a people, we as Lakota people and American Indian people in general are a very happy people. We like to have a good time. We like to laugh. We make jokes about the things that, they're hard or that hurt us. We make jokes about them, we have fun with it. We try to use humor to heal. There's an old saying that WD-40 is the lubrication of healing. You see, humor is the WD-40 of healing. And so we use humor in that way. We have a lot of fun. And so we're on this ride, we're making this great sacrifice, but there's lots of times and lots of laughs. I'll never forget I'm riding along, and this little Lakota boy, couldn't have been 9 years old. He rides up beside me, and he's bareback on his horse, and he rides up beside me, and he goes, and he kind of looks at me, because you could tell I was really, suffering. Kind of rides up beside me, and he goes, "Are you okay, sir?" I said, "Yeah, I'm alive. I'm hanging in there." There's moments like that on the ride that were very special and fun. And so this next song, is the second to the last song. And it's a song about coming back to your people. And for me, this day, the final day on the ride, was a day that changed my life forever. Because it was the day that the medicine man, the holy man for our people, his name is Chubbs Thunderhawk. He's a great guy. All throughout the ride, he had been talking about the importance of having a Lakota name. And I had not ever been given a Lakota name. But after that last day's ride, when I rode in the very last rider, and I was the last rider, we all gathered for one last meal. And I happened to be sitting down right next to Chubbs Thunderhawk. And he turned to me and he said to me, "Do you have a Lakota name?" The answer was no. And that day, he gave me my Lakota name. That means more to a Lakota person than anything you could possibly imagine. Our names mean everything to us. Very important to us. So to be given a Lakota name, Shiotanka is my Lakota name. You'll be amused to hear what it means. Great flute is what it translates to. And so he gave me my name that day, and he said to me, you belong to us, you are part of us, you are connected to us. You're a part of our community. You got to understand, I did not grow up on the reservation. Most Indian people don't. And so I always felt that one degree of separation. And for him to say that, and for him to stand up in front of all those people and make that announcement and say it in front of everyone, was a really life-changing moment for me. And the whole ride was a life-changing moment. So the whole thing was about coming back. So that's what this song is about, this next song. It's about being with your people, about being in your homeland and feeling like you belong. This is called Coming Home. And so we come to the final song. And this particular song is about gratitude. And the thing about making this journey and taking this ride, okay, as a people, that I want to kind of get, you into, that I want to kind of invite you into, is to understand our people and how we see the world and how we function in it. We are not a people who really care that much about things, about acquiring possessions, any of that stuff. It really doesn't matter. Having a manicured yard, it doesn't really matter, honestly, to Native people. A lot of people will ask me sometimes, when they go up on the reservation and say, why are all those broke down cars in people's yards and stuff? Well, that's the parts store. You see, you got to keep the one car running. So you need all those other cars for the parts, you see. And that's the other thing. As a people, we don't have a word in our language for the word disposable. You see, the idea of something being disposable, something that you kind of use once and throw away, is a foreign concept to our people as a culture. Everything can be used at some point again. You see, we did the same thing when we hunted the buffalo. Not a piece of that animal was wasted. Not one part of it was wasted. You see, we didn't waste anything, and so we're still that way. This day, to this day, we're still that way. So the car is like our horse, you see. It's like that buffalo. We're not just going to waste it. We're going to use it. There's parts and pieces and things like that we can use. Same with that old refrigerator that's sitting outside the house there, see? And all those other things that are sitting there. There's things you can use that stuff for, you see? You got to understand also that our people as a whole are the poorest people in the United States of America. Many of our reservations, including mine, some of those people are living in third world poverty conditions. No running water, no electricity, no heat, except for wood. It's bad. And so they have to take what they can get. And so that's why there's a lot of parts and things and stuff laying around, because you got to use what you got. You can't toss that out because somewhere down the road you might need it, you see. And so, as a people, we're not about acquiring things. It's not about that. What matters more to us than anything is a life of purpose. And you know what? It really matters to all of us. A great part of what makes people wander and make bad decisions or find themselves depressed is because they don't have purpose. One of the things in our culture that we always did is we had the I.P.F.W. That's called the vision quest. You go to cry for a vision. It's called the crying for a vision, I.P.F.W. You notice I didn't say praying for a vision or asking for a vision. Crying, literally crying to the Creator. Please, please, show me the way. Show me what I am doing here. What am I here for? We would go up high on the mountain and spend 3-4 days and nights alone, no food, no water, no clothes, and cry for the Creator to show us a vision for our life. Because we wanted to find our purpose. Because when you find your purpose, everything makes sense then. It matters. Those steps you take, the things that you do with your hands, the things you say with your mouth, they mean something then because you have a purpose and a meaning behind it. When there's no purpose, when you don't know why you're here or what you're doing here, you can find yourself wandering and you can find yourself not happy, empty inside. Why am I doing this? What's the point? That's the whole point of the vision, is to find the point. Find the reason for your breath, for your steps in this life. And so as a people, as Lakota people, and Indian people all across this country, and into Canada and even into Central America. That's the most important thing that mattered and still matters to us as a culture. Purpose, a vision. And so part of this ride, this journey on the horse, is to restore that vision to our people as a whole, as a community. See, to give our people a renewed vision for the future. You see, we are never going to be, no offense, we are never going to be white folks. We're always going to be who we are, you see. So we have to redefine for ourselves what that means in this world that we live in today. How is what we have and who we are, how does it fit? And I believe one of the ways it fits is that we, as a people, have to get back to the place of balance on this earth. We have to get back to a place where we understand what's really important, and that it's not the acquiring of possessions, it's not a big fancy car, it's not lots of money, it's love. It's loving the people who are close to you. It's forgiveness. It's wisdom. That's why we're here. That's our purpose as a people, humanity. And that's what the horse spirit ride for me was all about, is our people finding our voice so we can contribute what we have to offer to humanity. Because we all have something to give. We all have something to live for, a purpose in this life. And that's something to be grateful for. And when I did that ride, when I got finished with that ride, I was in my car and I was driving out of the Northern Plains. I was the happiest man on earth. Because I had made that sacrifice, made that connection, found that healing, found a place. That was a powerful moment for me. And so this song that I'm going to play for you now is the last song of the day, and then I'm going to make my way around and I guess sit somewhere. I'm being pointed to, okay. I'll be sitting there. And I hope to get a chance to shake your hand, say hello, and say thank you to you for coming. If you do decide to take me home with you in a digital format, I'll sign it for you, okay? I'll put my John Two Hawks on it for you, okay? This song is about that moment when I was in the car and how happy I felt to have that sense of real direction, you see. I pray that the Creator gives it to each and every one of you. This song is in Lakota. The name is in Lakota, and it means great thanks. It is called Wopila. Thank you all very much. I look forward to chatting with you. All right, thank you.